Now on to our program. We are fortunate to have with us today to moderate our discussion a former chair of the Economic Club of Chicago, Debra Cafaro. Debra is chairman and chief executive officer of Ventas, a leading S&P 500 company with 1,400 properties focused on longevity economy. Since being named CEO in 1999, she has grown Ventas's market capitalization from $200 million to approximately $40 billion. She serves on the board of PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., and the University of Chicago Board of Trustees. An inductee into the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, Debra has been named one of Harvard Business Review's best performing CEOs 6 times. A lifelong sports fan, she is an investor in several professional sports franchises, including the MLB Baltimore Orioles, the NWSL Chicago Stars FC, and the NHL Pittsburgh Penguins, who won 2 Stanley Cups since she became an owner. You want me to repeat that in Chicago? Now on to our speaker. After graduating from Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania in 1986, Cathy Engelbert, a freshly minted CPA, joined a group of Deloitte trainees that would later assume leadership positions throughout corporate America. That training proved prophetic as Cathy rose through the ranks to become the first woman to lead a global Big Four firm as CEO of Deloitte in 2015. As CEO, she guided the organization through a period of strong growth and modernization, marked by consistent double-digit revenue growth, expansion into high-margin digital and analytics services, and Deloitte's emergence as the largest accounting and consulting practice in the U.S. with over 100,000 employees. In 2019, Cathy brought the same mindset to a different kind of enterprise, the WNBA. During her tenure as commissioner, the WNBA has seen record-breaking attendance and viewership in multiple seasons, with national TV audiences reaching all-time highs. She also guided the league through negotiations of an 11-year media rights deal worth over $2 billion. Last year, the WNBA was ranked number 4 in Fast Company's most innovative companies. While her time leading the front office has not been without challenges, the numbers do not lie. She has elevated the WNBA into the top tier of global women's sports leagues by revenue, attendance, visibility, and commercial relevance. Cathy is a member of the board of directors of McDonald's Corporation, Royalty Pharma, and the nonprofit United States Golf Association, where she is a member of its executive committee. She also serves as the vice chair of the Partnership for New York City and is a member of the Business Council, the Council on Foreign Relations, and Catalyst, a global nonprofit organization that promotes inclusive workplaces for women. A competitive athlete from a large family of athletes, Cathy grew up in Philadelphia's suburb of Collingswood, New Jersey, with her 5 brothers and 2 sisters. She played lacrosse and basketball in college, and her dad, a star college basketball player, was drafted by the Detroit Pistons before a career as an IT manager. It is no wonder that a lifelong love of sports propelled Cathy to the C-suite and fueled her rise to commissioner of the WNBA. Welcome to the Economic Club of Chicago, Debra Cafaro and WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert.
We want to give you a warm Chicago welcome from our unique and really cohesive Chicago business community. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Great to be here. No, it's great to be here. And when I landed this morning, I was like, woo, it's cold. And then everybody's like, no, it's like summer. This is summer. Although it's cold in New York, too.
Well, Brett went through some of your background. I just want to ask one question about your family, because you had 8 kids in your family. So was it competitive?
Just a little bit. So especially the 5 brothers. So I had 3 older brothers, an older sister, 3 older brothers, 2 younger brothers, and obviously grew up very humble means. We competed for everything. We competed for the parents' time, for sure, but my brothers would steal all our food, so we literally would like hide Pop-Tarts. And our Pop-Tarts are back, by the way, because of the Pop-Tart Bowl. We would hide Pop-Tarts and things in our room because our brothers stole everything from us. So very competitive. And I was thrown in the backyard to play things like street hockey. They would throw me in goal, and that orange ball hurts. Basketball, obviously, wiffle ball, soccer. We played every sport. We were all tennis players in high school also, and just all 3 sport athletes. And yeah, it was very competitive. And my mentioned was my father, drafted into the NBA in 1957 by the Detroit Pistons. Guess what the rookie salary was in 1957? Throw it out. $12,000, $25,000, $2,000. It was $950. 1957, $950. And my dad went on to a long career at RCA where he started at $2,500, never played in the NBA, because that wasn't enough money. So that's the upbringing, but great upbringing, big family. My dad's passed away, but my mom is still living with us, and she's got 33 grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
That's incredible. Well, when you went to Lehigh to play sports, that competition no doubt served you well. Were there scholarships for women athletes at that time?
No scholarships. I went on, it was called a loan cancellation grant. If I got a certain GPA, I would get aid, and it was only a part of the tuition. And when I went to school, we're all right in a row, so that we had a senior, junior, sophomore, and freshman at Villanova when I then went to Lehigh. So the senior graduated, but we had 4 in a row. And obviously my dad worked 3 jobs, my mom worked, couldn't afford a whole lot. We weren't even allowed to get like Converse sneakers until we turned 13, and then we wanted Pumas, and we had to wait till you were 17 for Puma sneakers. But it was a great upbringing, and it really taught us hard work and dedication. My dad working 3 jobs, and it was just, a great upbringing. Going to Lehigh, I was actually recruited for lacrosse. I was a walk-on for basketball. And those who know Muffet McGraw, now Naismith Hall of Fame coach for Notre Dame, I'm sure we have some Domers in here.
Right here.
Right here. So Muffet was my coach for 4 years at Lehigh. Her first head coaching job was at Lehigh University, where she totally turned around the program. But I was a walk-on. I literally saw, back then we had no cell phones, there was no internet, and someone put a little flyer on a tree by my dorm, and it said, "Women's basketball tryouts today at 3 o'clock at Taylor Gym." So Deb, I went. I said, I played high school basketball. I was pretty good. I went and I walked on, and many years later, like 27 years later, Muffet and I were on stage together. Coach McGraw, I should call her. We're on stage together, and she tells the crowd, this was in New York City with 250 Notre Dame grads, "Oh yeah, I almost cut Cathy the first day." I'm like, what? 27 years later? And I said, "It's a good thing you didn't cut me, because I wouldn't be the commissioner of the WNBA today." Not that you had to have played basketball to be the commissioner, but it definitely helped and gave you some cred. And she was an amazing coach, and she went on to 2 national championships at Notre Dame and a 30-year career. She retired a few years ago. So yeah, I ended up at Lehigh primarily because I was recruited for lacrosse.
Well, and when you left Lehigh, if you didn't come from a family of wealth, what made you go to Deloitte? Did you go right after you graduated from Lehigh?
Yeah. Well, first, I worked for a pediatrician through high school and college. Like every waking moment that I had when I wasn't at school, I worked for a pediatrician. I was my uncle. but literally weighing and measuring babies. So I got like a little flavor of the medical profession, and when I saw blood, I said, that's not me. So my dad was a computer science, IT, early IT guy for NASA and things like that, and so I wanted to be that. I wanted to be a computer science, so Lehigh's a very big engineering school. So I literally, I took a Fortran programming course. Does anyone remember that? And I said, I am definitely not meant to be in computer science. I said it was like a course in Greek. So someone said, Cathy, there's this thing in the business school, and it's called accounting. I said, what's accounting? And they said 2 things. It's the language of business, and you'll get a job. And you'll get a job. There was the Big 8 back then. Everybody got jobs. And the language of business, I found out about a decade later who said accounting is the language of business. And it was Warren Buffett. And I literally, 25 years later, I got the opportunity to sit in Warren Buffett's office as the CEO of Deloitte, Berkshire Hathaway, big client. And I told Warren that story. He goes, that's absolutely me that said that, and it's still the language of business. So
it is, whether we like it or not.
And that's how I ended up at Deloitte, literally right out of college. We were called Deloitte Haskins and Sells back then in the Philadelphia office where I was from and born. We're both from Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's how I ended up. Literally, because there was the Big 8, and you got a job.
Exactly.
And this was 1986.
It was a great career path, and you ended up staying there 3 decades and becoming the CEO, a real trailblazer. Were there any key, inflection points during your time over those years that really shaped you?
First of all, I never, ever thought I would be the CEO. That's not what I aspired to. And I tell young kids today, don't aspire to a boxer title, right. Aspire to lead. Because when you aspire to a boxer title, I think you lose your way a little bit. So never, ever, just worked really hard, had great clients. I was our lead partner on Bristol-Myers Squibb. I originally became, probably one of the turning points is I went to what we call our National Office Management Development Program 6 years in, and did 2 years, and I became a derivative financial instrument expert on valuation of interest rate swaps and foreign currency forwards and commodities. But it was a niche. I knew my accounting and my auditing, but I had this little niche that only 5 people probably in the whole country had. And so then there were new fair value derivative standards, and everybody needed help, and I traveled to clients, and I'll never forget, I went to a client in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. And this is important in my career because I met this partner. I went out to talk to his client about derivative financial instruments. So one day I worked for this guy and talked to his client. Whatever it was he saw in me, he actually behind the scenes became my sponsor. He literally, many years later, I again worked with him one day, went out to his client. Many years later, he became a senior leader in the firm, was the CEO of our audit practice. And for some reason, he took me under his wing. I didn't know it at the time. Not because he thought I would be the CEO, but he saw some potential in me. And Deloitte has this amazing apprenticeship model and sponsorship and mentorship. But sponsors you don't pick. So he was there. So many years later, when I became the CEO, he said, yeah, we had this dashboard on you, Cathy. You were you needed to run a business, and you already had the technical, and you had the big client responsibility, and here's the dashboard, and it's red, yellow, green. And I'm looking at him I wasn't red on that. And he goes, that's why we never showed it to you. Because we were kind of behind the scenes. Again, not because we thought you were the CEO, but you were high potential or whatever you call it. And not everybody's going to be a CEO, but we thought you'd be an enterprise leader. And we kind of invested in you behind the scenes. So that was a turning point that one day in Columbus, Ohio.
What you say is a great lesson, though, is if you aspire to a box, you close yourself off from so many things. And taking on some of these assignments that may not be the most exciting can be real game changers in some cases if you just kind of spread your wings and meet other people.
Yeah, and definitely for me, and I give this advice especially to young women. So when I became the CEO of Deloitte, here I am, first female CEO, and I'm we actually had this office at 30 Rock in New York where you hit a button and it became opaque. The windows. and you hit it again, and it became clear. So the prior CEO kind of had it opaque a lot, and I like always had it clear. I was trying to send a message like open door policy, come in and talk to me, raise your hand. And the first open position on my executive committee, 9 men knocked on my door for the role, no women. And I was like, what? Like here I thought like I was inspiring women to raise their hand and come and ask for the job, and none of them did. So I reached out to a couple of them and said, you know this job is open, why wouldn't you? And every woman said the same thing. Oh, I'm good where I am. Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I don't want to disrupt this, I'm on this client, and I'd have to come off. And so they were balancing a lot. The men were balancing a lot too, I must admit. But 9 men asked and 3 women, or no women did. So it kind of gave me this kind of like, okay, leadership. Now you have to notice things like that. We need to raise your hand and do everything you can to build your capability. There was one point in my career I raised my hand and I said, like, I don't want to do this. But I got great advice from a mentor, like if you're going to say no to one thing, you have to have the yes behind it. So I once was asked to move to St. Louis. I'm sorry for anyone from St. Louis. It would have been a great client in a great city. But I said, oh, there's this other client right in New Jersey where I was from and where I lived, and I was pregnant with my second child, and I'm thinking about all the things I want to do as a mom and a wife, et cetera. And I was like, there's this client like 2.2 miles from my house, only stop signs, no stop lights. I can imagine myself having the baby, running home and feeding it, going back to work. I had this whole vision in my head. So I sat down with this senior partner who asked me to move to St. Louis, and I said, what about this client? And it's actually in the industry I serve. It was a pharmaceutical client, and it was a big Fortune 500 client. And he said, you know what he said to me, Deb? We never would have thought of you for that. What? That's all I'm thinking about for myself. So the lesson there was no one is thinking about your career as much as you are. You have to speak up and ask for things. It's kind of like the quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Now, it's actually a Wayne Gretzky quote. A lot of people give Michael Jordan the credit, but I think it was Wayne Gretzky. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And that was one where I was so happy that I got that advice. If you're going to say no to St. Louis, say yes to something else. And by the way, within 6 weeks, I was on that client in New Jersey and kind of led to other things. So all these little points in my career, I can point that kind of stuff out.
Well, did you say yes to the WNBA, or did they come find you? Did you find them?
Well, that's an interesting question. So when you're the CEO of Deloitte, you have a term. My term was ending in June of 2019, so we knew this in 2018. And there was a former partner of Deloitte who was a good friend of mine. In fact, he was in the Chicago market for a while, and he went to Notre Dame, was a Notre Dame football player. His name's Byron Spruell. And Byron, see, people know Byron here. Shout out Byron. So Byron came to me about a year into when I was the CEO of Deloitte, and we were good friends, and he said, I'm leaving the firm. And I'm like, no, Byron, you can't leave me, not now. And he said, I figured he was going to a competitor, and he goes, I said, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to become the vice president of basketball operations for the National Basketball Association. And I'm like, cool. I said, you take that job, and you're going to hire me someday. Totally kidding. This is 2015. Totally kidding. I'd just become the CEO of Deloitte. Lo and behold, in November of 2018, he calls me. He says, Cathy, I have the perfect job for you, commissioner of the WNBA. And my reaction was, this is bad advice, absolutely not. I don't know anything about running a sports league. I did play college basketball, but that's it. And I'm from a basketball family. He then took me to my favorite restaurant, bought me my favorite wine. Literally over 4 months, Byron begged me. And he finally said, and I was still finishing out my term through June, he finally said, come over to the NBA, WNBA offices. We share offices in the Olympic Tower in New York, right across from St. Patrick's Cathedral. Just come over for 1 hour and meet with Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA. 1 hour. And it's a 2-block walk. I said, okay. And I'll never forget, it was April 15th because it was tax day. Just happened that was the day Adam was available. And so I walked the 2 blocks over. I hit the button on the 14th floor. And I got off the elevator, and I was mesmerized. The elevator bank was a parquet basketball floor. You turned the corner and there were hoops and Papa-Shot and trophies and logos and pictures of Wilt Chamberlain, who my dad had played against, and obviously, you know, a lot of the more recent NBA stars like Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, et cetera. And it was fascinating to me. I go, I don't remember anything Adam Silver said to me that day in that 1 hour, but I walked back saying I had written 3 things on a piece of paper that I wanted to do next. I wrote, I want to do something different, something with a broad women's leadership platform, and something I had a passion for. So while I was in the office as mesmerized by the decor, I walked back and said something different, check. Broad women's leadership platform, check, 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 check. I didn't know how many checks on that one until I got in the job. And then something I had a passion for. I love the game, and I really thought I could help the players advance because the league was really struggling at that time, really, really struggling. So, and we were a small league on the margins of professional sports at the time. So I said, I think I can bring some of my capability here and make a difference. So that's why I took the job.
And how old were you at that time?
It was 6 years ago, so I was young. I'm not going to give away how old I am, but it's on Wikipedia. So.
Okay. Can you explain for our audience, in summary fashion, the league, who owns it, who owns the teams, just so
so this is a league that it's the longest tenured women's professional sports league in the country. Longest tenure, because so many have come and gone by double any other, by the way. So I felt great responsibility coming to the job, especially as the first commissioner, because the prior title was president. It reported to the deputy commissioner of the NBA, who reported to the commissioner of the NBA. So I report to my board of directors, some of which are sitting here today, as you heard, the Chicago Sky owners. So we have, we'll have 15 teams this year. We had 12 when I came in. We're starting up in Portland and Toronto this year. We did Golden State last year, and in 3 more by the end of the decade, so we'll end up at 18 teams. I'm thrilled about that, because in any business, as you all know, you need scale. And 12 cities was not enough to get a great media deal. We're now at $3.1 billion. It was $2.1. We're up to $3.1 billion for the media deal now, which when I came in, we had about $25 million a year at a media deal, and now it'll be $260 million a year. This is going to allow us to do so much with the players. But it's been, Deb, it's been like when I came in, I went from a firm of 100,000 employees to a league of 144 players and 12 people at the league office. 12 people. I was like, what? And I came in, and on one of my first days, now I'm like a CPA accountant, right? And now I'm like in a B2C business. I've built Deloitte B2B business. Now I'm in a B2C business. I come in, the first day I meet with the head of marketing, one person in marketing at the time. Meet with the head of marketing, and I said, what's our marketing plan for the rest of the season? Because I joined about almost 2/3 of the way into that season in 2019. And the head of marketing had this great PowerPoint slide. It had 5 bullets on it. Wonderful, this sounds great. And then, like, I had worked in our consulting group for a little bit, and then, like a true consultant, I said, could you double-click on each of those bullets and tell me what the executable plan behind each of those 5 are? She looked at me for what seemed like an eternity, 30 seconds, and she said, Cathy, I got nothing. I don't have any money. I don't have any people. You're my new boss. You asked me for what I thought the marketing plan. I just put this together last night. And I said, all right, you're out. No, I didn't say that immediately. I didn't say that immediately. I just said, okay. No, it just was an aha. It was an aha moment. Like, we don't have a chief marketing officer, and we're the longest tenured women's professional sports team. And it went on. We had no one in growth. Today, we have 30 people driving growth. We had no one in marketing. We have 33 people now. We had no digital. We had no engineers. Our app was clunky. We had 25,000 outdated pages on our WNBA.com, and 85% of our fans were coming to us first through WNBA.com. So it was a mess. Every stone we turned over. And what happens when you inherit something like that? What do you need? Capital. Money to hire human capital.
Yes.
That's the beauty of, I have a table of Deloitte colleagues here tonight. The beauty of Deloitte is we had so many people with so much capability in an apprenticeship model, and now I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't have any money. I don't have any people. And then I got an email from a text from Adam Silver saying, Kobe Bryant would like to meet with you, Cathy. I said, what? This is a pretty cool job. I was like 3 months into the job. Like, Kobe Bryant wants to meet with me? The only thing I had in common, we're both from Philly, but that was it. Obviously, Naismith Hall of Fame player. And about a week later, Kobe was in my office. I gave him one of our iconic orange hoodies. He said, Cathy, I don't want to talk about the NBA anymore. I want to talk about the WNBA because my daughter's going to play in your league someday. And he said, I know you guys are struggling. What do you need? Because Kobe was going to have an amazing second act. He said, what do you need? And I actually said, without even thinking, I need $50 million, Kobe. And he laughed, kind of, huh. Then he goes, I'm going to help you raise it. That was November of 2019. And then less than 2 months later, Kobe and those young families and Gigi and those other young families died in that helicopter crash. And then 2 months later, the pandemic hit. And we didn't start our season yet. Like, the NBA was 75% of the way through their season. The NFL was done, Super Bowl over. We didn't start, and actually, the NBA All-Star Game was in February that year here in Chicago at the United Center. I remember thinking COVID was dancing on the ceiling of the United Center. We just didn't know it. And we hadn't had a season yet. And here I am in my first year as the commissioner, and I said, wow, this is pretty existential. Debbie and I were talking about it was existential for so many of you, I know. Truly existential for the WNBA, because if we had been out of the sports landscape for 20 months, which is what it would have been if we didn't have a season, we're out of business, and I'm not sitting here right now talking about one of the most successful women's sports leagues in the world. So it was, that's what you're dealt, right? But I went back and thought about Kobe saying very confidently, I'm going to help you raise that money. And a year later, we raised a very successful $75 million. We probably could have raised 200, but I didn't have the people to deploy it. And I always say, a CEO, there's many of you in the room or leaders, you have 3 jobs: culture, strategy, and capital allocation. I had no capital to allocate. I had no strategy, where there was no strategy when I came in. We didn't know who our fan was. We had no capabilities. And the capital helped us hire 33 marketers, 30 growth people, shore up basketball operations, have great tentpole events, like we're having the All-Star Game here in Chicago in July. And we also have, we always had amazing players. So I don't want to say we have amazing players. We always had amazing players. We're going to be, this is our 30th season too, so this is a special season milestone for us, year 30. And the players have been amazing. Where obviously you've been reading, I'm sure, about a somewhat contentious collective bargaining agreement. I was with someone who has unions the other day who said, Cathy, like, it's just contentious because you've arrived. Like, nobody cared 6 years ago about your CBA. Now they do, and it's a good thing. And I'm like, it's really hard, though.
Doesn't feel like it.
Doesn't feel like it when you're going through it. But we will significantly increase player salaries and benefits. It will be historic. It will be historic. But it's hard because the players want everything, and they deserve everything. But we also have to fit it into a model where these investors that just invested in the WNBA or have for a very long time, like Michael Alter and John Rogers, like, we've got to make sure that we don't do a bad deal, because the owners, it's their money, not my money, and the league exists, for competitive balance. One of the really interesting things too, Deb, about being in the WNBA, so your board of directors, right? They all want you to be successful. They're all rowing in the same direction. Guess what? In sports, your board, they don't want the other owners to be successful on the court or on the field because they want to win a championship. So the leagues exist for competitive balance purposes and things like that, and the rules, because everybody wants to win, and they'll do anything to win.
Well, let's talk about that, because there is, as a commissioner, you're kind of a lightning rod, and you have all these different stakeholders. So who owns the league? And who are your other
really
stakeholders?
The one thing I've realized when I came into it is, like, I thought sports was so different.
No.
Sports is big business about relationships. That part is not different, but your stakeholders are very different.
Yes.
Because your stakeholders are, in our case, the NBA owns a portion of the league, and then the WNBA owners own the portion of the league, and now we have the outside capital group, of which, by the way, half are either NBA or WNBA owners, so our owners doubled down. They believed in us well before we hit this momentum over the past couple of years. So yeah, there's some complexity to that, but I would say they're all rowing in the same direction as it relates to growing the business, the investments they're making, like for instance, Michael and team and Nadia building a practice facility, state-of-the-art practice facility here in Chicago. So congrats on that. And the investments that are being made across the board, but you have to actually have that confidence in the business model, which we didn't have until we negotiated a historic media deal, our corporate partnership. Thank you for those in the room that support us. I mean, when I came in, our corporate partnership revenue was flat for 4 straight years, and we've now quadrupled it. And it's important because companies have stepped up, not because it's the right thing to do, even though it is, but they believe now in our business model and the ability to, like, we have, like, a WNBA fan is so loyal. We have a very different fan base. A lot of people don't realize this. The Golden State Warriors ownership team had our first expansion in 15 years last year, the Golden State Valkyries. They sold out the Chase Center every game.
Right.
They sold more season tickets than any team in the league's history in their first year, and only 5% of them were Golden State Warriors season ticket holders. We have a very different fan base, a very rabid and avid. I went to the opening game at the Chase Center. Fans who never knew these players, you would have thought they knew them their whole lives, how the passion for it. So very different fan base. Our fans are so loyal. We have data that outsiders have given us saying, like, if a WNBA corporate partner advertises in arena or on our broadcast, WNBA fans are 12 times more likely to buy from that product or service than the general population. So it's incredible the loyalty we see and how different it is. So we have different stakeholders and we have different fans.
So let's talk about that. So after years of grinding, kind of, the WNBA became just an overnight success. And you've been at the helm of all that. What were the key catalysts that just blew it up?
Yeah, it really was the confluence of, like, the perfect storm on the positive side, the confluence of so many great things happening at once. Women in the workforce. The players, what people didn't understand, like, these are women in the workforce just like us. Women in the workforce rising. When I was the CEO of Deloitte, I think it was, and Mary would know this, 4% of CEOs of the Fortune 500 were women. I think now it's 14, 15%. It goes up and down. So we've made progress. It's not great, but it's better than where we were.
Yes.
And so if you think about that combined with live sports post-pandemic, people craved live sports. People started watching our sport. The quality of our game is amazing. Generational rookies coming into our league. NIL, I know everybody complains about it, but it's been kind of net accretive for women basketball players.
I think so.
There was a couple years ago where 4 of the top 10 NIL wage earners in college were women basketball players. The other 6, I think, at the time were like Alabama football players or something like that. And certainly 4 out of the top 5 basketball NIL wage earners are women. And usually there's one man that, then goes number 1 in the NBA draft after 1 year, but our women are staying in for 4 years.
Right.
So if you're a corporate who wants to sponsor, and the women are getting, one of the differences too is the men are getting some national brands, but they're also getting the local grocer, the local car dealer, et cetera. But the women are getting like State Farm and AT&T and Mercedes and Nike, and they're getting big national and global brands support them. And so when they come into the WNBA, they already have this big following. People know who they are. Obviously, we've had generational rookies like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Paige Beckers, and more to come. I mean, one of the things the media companies loved about us when we negotiated our deal were 2 things. One was, it's not just the players in the league, it's the players to come. Because they see the next 4 years in college, and then the U17 ranks. I mean, I don't go to a lot of U17 games, but we're being told there's the next Caitlin Clark and Juju Watkins, and Juju's still to come. She's hurt right now. And Lauren Betts, and AZ Fudd, and there's so many great players, and we're so fortunate in women's basketball to have this great pipeline coming in, and that's what people want to watch, that's what people buy, that's why people advertise on broadcast, and that's how media companies make their money, that's how corporate partners see our value, and so we've been hugely successful by, if you build it, they will come. I know it's a baseball analogy, but we literally built it and they came.
And yes, and the product is amazing. The product is absolutely...
we only play 40 minutes, not 48 like the NBA, and that's 17% less if I have my math right. And the triple doubles and double doubles that our players are putting up every night is incredible. So if you haven't watched, please watch. You're going to be hooked. It's the game you grew up playing, for sure. And I love watching it. I'd watch a game every minute of every day.
Let's talk about watching. I want to ask you about the media landscape, because anybody in sports knows that for every sport, watching habits have dramatically shifted, although people still want to watch live sports. That is something they will pay to watch. And the media has become fragmented also. So on the one side, different viewing habits. On the other side, you have fragmented media. You have Amazon Prime, you have all these, Paramount, et cetera. So how do you see that evolving? And what has it meant for you at the WNBA? And I know you got your big contract, and I want to talk about that. But let's start with kind of the broader sports media landscape. And if you want to throw in the impact of gaming, go ahead.
First, huge disruption. You all already know this. I've been talking about this for 5 years when I didn't know anything about the media landscape because I was new to sports. But huge disruption. I'm a huge studier of both history, current. I'm a huge, huge reader of anything I can get my hands on what's going on. And one of the probably best capital allocation decisions I ever made was to pay an outside firm to help me figure out how I get a great media deal. And you know what I asked them to do? Just educate me. How do they make their money? Mm-hmm. How do the media companies make their money? Mm-hmm. Because then I can plug and play how the WNBA can help add to their coffers. So I didn't need advice on this or that. I needed advice how these media companies, so that when I go meet with them, I have the right narrative to tell them of how the WNBA. Now it helped that our viewership went from 180,000 to 1.2 million over that period of time. Our average viewership on national platforms, when I joined the league, we only had 80 games on national platforms. And 2 or 3 years ago, we got 205 of our 240 games on national platforms. The "if you build it again, they will come" came to fruition there. So there is something like exposure. Another thing, 4 days on the job, I'm told 2 stats. Less than 1% of all corporate partnership dollars in sports is women's sports, and less than 5% of all media coverage of sports is women's sports. So I went right to the media coverage, though, because I studied the NFL, the NBA, NHL, MLB, and we started getting viewership like MLS does, and MLB blows us away in the playoffs, but in the regular season, because 162 games, we can compete with them on weekly viewership. So I started to think what's the algorithm for how they're going to calculate women's sports? And I'm fortunate I worked in spreadsheets my whole career, and I'm a CPA, and I just started putting valuation models together, and maybe that was my derivative background, and I just said, the valuation system's broken because our viewership is on par with some of these major men's leagues, and we're way undervalued and underscaled. So the media landscape totally disrupted. We were actually the first to do Amazon Prime, believe it or not, before the NFL, and now before the NBA. So we did it. Viewership wasn't great. People weren't really going to streaming for live sports. They're still below if you're looking at broadcast. But we did great when we were on ABC, better than when we were on ESPN. Why? Let's look at our fan demographic information and figure out why people watch. We have a more lifestyle viewer, not a true sports viewer. That's why we do better on ABC, and ABC's in more households. But obviously with all the households using TVs, plummeting, people using TVs plummeting, they call them hut and putt levels. We had to study all of that and determine what was the best for us. Competition is great, so as much as the media market's been disrupted, there was still competition. Like there's some countries where there's just one broadcaster and there's no competition. It's hard to negotiate a good deal. But here in the U.S., we've still got very strong competition from all of them. But getting 204 of those 240 games on national platforms was really important. We're going to have a ton of games on national platforms because we're adding NBC and Peacock this year and Versant. Someone told me it was Versant the other day. I said, I've been saying Versant, but the new SpinCo of the cable networks of NBC, Universal. So we're in really good shape. But, you know, I'm the type that I haven't cut the cord, and I have a subscription to everything. I have 18 subscriptions. Have you ever counted up your subscriptions?
Yes.
I have 18, including 2 Spotifys for my 2 different kids because they can't have the same Spotify account. 18.
Do you think the fragmentation has helped you bring in dollars to the league, or has it made it harder?
I would say, now Amazon is our streaming partner, but the one thing that has helped us is with the NBA being kind of our big brother, the NBA and WNBA together are the only 2 sports that run counter seasons. They're essentially October to, well, they finish in June, but their regular seasons finish in April, and we're made October. We can actually provide a broadcast partner like NBC and Peacock 12 months of basketball programming. And that's attractive because if you're on a Peacock subscription or a Prime subscription, not that you're on Prime for other reasons, but for sports, you're paying that monthly fee, you can get 12 months of programming. So that was helpful and accretive also to have them as kind of go-to-market.
So how did you negotiate that? It's a $76 billion deal over 11 years.
Yeah, that's the NBA deal. We negotiate a separate deal.
So you did it
Ours is
completely
3.1 billion. Yeah, completely
Okay.
separately. We were coming from, again, a $25 million a year, 6-year deal, 8-year deal maybe. No, totally separately, and we used that outside consultants' view and vision of how they made money. We grew viewership. We got more games on. There were like 5 points out of that consulting project that we had to go do. And we had to do it 3 years before we negotiated the deal. You couldn't do this 6 months before you negotiated a deal. And our season's fairly short. We'll play 44 games this year. And 4.5 months we'll be done the regular season, then a month of playoffs. So it's fairly short compared to the men's leagues. It goes quick.
So how did you feel about it? If you think the league is taking off and your trajectory is strong, how did you think about locking into an 11-year deal? Did you negotiate it in a way where you have triggers for higher payouts?
Yeah, only part of it's an 11-year deal. Some of it's a 5, we have 3, 4, 5-year deals, and we have 11-year deals, so it's not all an 11-year deal. But when you're in sports, we do have a 3-year look-in because we're in such hyper-growth mode. And if we continue, well, we were not going to be in hyper-growth mode forever, so we wanted a 3-year look-in to say, let's look at where our viewership goes by then. Let's look at the impact this league has. Let's see if we can scale. At the time we negotiated the deal, we were only going to go to 16 at the most. Now we're at 18 already. We could go to more. And the more cities you're in, like the Bay Area, the fact we weren't in the Bay Area with how, you know, the demographic, the psychographic in the Bay, the progressiveness, and we're such a progressive league. Like, we had to be in the Bay Area, and it's returned huge dividends to be in the Bay, and it helped in our media deal as well. So scale helps. Again, in any business, scale helps.
And you mentioned that you're up to 1.2 million viewers per game.
Last year. Now, again, we got to deliver this year. I mean, you got to keep delivering. So in 3 years, this is the first year of our new deal. That's why we're really focused on marketing, on promoting TuneIn. I didn't even know what TuneIn was when I joined the league. It's like TuneIn, like I shoot you a text or an email or tune in now to ABC or tune in to NBC or Peacock. So you're going to see, especially in our 30th season, a huge barrage of the W. Once we get this deal done with the players, we got to run a 2-team expansion draft. We have to have a college draft in April, and then we tip off the season in early May.
Well, let's go to the issue on the table, which is trying to get a new collective bargaining agreement with the players. And when you first came in, that was your first act. And
it was.
As you said,
nobody cared, but yes, it was the first act.
But it was important.
We were in a very different place back
Yes.
then. We're in a great place now. The players know it. They deserve huge pay increases, as I said, balanced with the economic model is not quite where the leagues that are 80 to 105, 110 years old are. So we have to be the stewards of the game. We're trying to set this league up for decades. We don't want teams to fold. We don't want the league to fold like so many women's leagues has. We have this enormous opportunity and momentum. We have to balance, and this will be historic increases in salaries and benefits, because the benefits matter too. We're negotiating 40-some different things. It's not just salaries.
Of course.
There's huge benefits. We've already given the players charter because we started to return to them because we were doing well, and I knew
Charter plane travel.
Charter plane travel,
Yes.
which they did not have in the last collective bargaining agreement because we couldn't afford it. I mean, it's $30 million a year. We just couldn't afford it. Our media deal was 25, and we have $1 million expenses. So anyway, but we're at a very good point now, and we'll get a deal done. I'm optimistic.
So how you have to negotiate in public, which as a public company CEO is a very difficult, that's a very difficult position to be in. As the commissioner, again, you have so many stakeholders, and you're a lightning rod for everything that goes on. And so how do you approach something as important as this, and what do you see is at stake really for the league, for women's sports, obviously for the players?
Yeah, I think Caitlin Clark said it the other night on the NBC broadcast, like, this is the biggest thing that ever happened in women's sports right now, this collective bargaining. We take that with great responsibility. That's why we think we have a historic deal on the table. But, I'm in New York City, and the nurses are all striking right now, and they're saying all these horrible things about their leaders, and then they'll get a deal done, and we'll move on, and we'll do the same thing. And obviously, as the commissioner, you're the bad guy, and we have to be the bad guys because we want the owners to be the good, the players to be the heroes, and the owners to be the good guys, so that they can attract free agents to their markets. So one thing that's going to be wild this year for the WNBA is that once we get this deal done and an expansion draft done, 98% of the veterans or free agents can actually go to other teams. So there might be a lot of movement going on once we get to it. So, and they did that because they had it correspond with the new deal, because they obviously, if they signed a contract under the old deal, they would get paid the old money, and they knew it was going to increase. Like, these increases are going to be historic, and we're not done yet negotiating. So. So we'll get something done. There's a lot on the table. It's very complicated. They've got labor lawyers. We have labor lawyers. Surrounded by lawyers.
Maybe that's the problem.
No, we love lawyers. We love lawyers.
Is there a mediator or a facilitator that's helping to get through?
No, we represent the owners
Yes.
at the table, and the owners are at the table. Like, no secret, we had a huge meeting yesterday, 3-hour meeting with the players across the table from some of our owners. We have a labor relations committee, which is a subset of our owners. Nadia actually sits on that. She probably doesn't want me to disclose that, but it's in the press already. No, but we take input from all of our owners, but our labor relations committee has been doing work, and I have a great set of lawyers, and they have a great staff. So yeah, we're going back and forth, but this is what posturing's all about, negotiating's all about.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Time to move on, Deb.
Well, I know you're going to get it done, Cathy. I'm telling you. I know it's hard. I know you're going to get it done.
It was so funny. Like, when I took this job, I told you the 3 reasons I took it, and I do a lot of things in my life in 3s. I wanted something different, broad women's leadership platform, something I had a passion for. What I didn't want is a big public-facing job. And Deloitte, because it was B2B, wasn't a public company, was not that public-facing. It was public-facing to the extent you wanted it to, or you had a scandal or something. This is really public-facing. And my son said, "I told you so, Mom. I told you it was going to be public-facing."
Well, you know what Billie Jean King said, pressure is a privilege. And I know you'll get something done, and we'll all be the better for it.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes, that's well said, Billie Jean.
Yeah. So let's assume now you're on to, you've seen this explosive growth in viewership, in attention, in media funds, in the valuations of teams. I think the latest valuation was $450 million for one of the WNBA teams.
It's incredible. I'll just give you a little eye-in. When I joined the league, a team was worth between $2 and $5 million. The average, based on 25 numbers when they come out, they haven't come out yet because most of our teams are 12/31 fiscal year end, December 31. They're just closing their books now. will probably be 300 to 350 million. It's crazy. It's crazy. But it's driven by risk, revenue multiples.
Yes.
And the teams are doing better. You're all showing up. Our corporate partners have showed up. Our media, it's just, again, it's this confluence of all this positive energy. And sports is a great uniter, too.
It
Look,
is.
this country we're in, we're all waking up every day trying to, make ends meet and to wake up every day. And sports is such a great unifier. I see it in our arenas. I went to a college game the other day. It was Michigan Vanderbilt, women's college game, and I was like, I've just watched the fans there, the joy they had.
It makes you happy. It really does.
Sports is such a great uniter.
So where do you see then, you've gotten from here to here, what do you think the great opportunity set is for the league, for the teams, as you look at the next 5 years and beyond? Is it global? Is it media? Where do you see
There's
the
still a lot of
greatest
upside. I hope we help lift all of women's sports. We want all of women's sports to thrive, whether it's soccer or hockey or volleyball or softball. And I think there's a lot going on, a lot of investment being poured in. What's amazing is 5 years ago, sports was not an asset class, men or women.
Right.
And now it's definitely an asset class for men, and it's actually a sub-asset class for women. And I only say sub because we're not quite there yet on the business model, the economic model, but we're getting there. We're literally, that's why we're fighting so hard in this collective bargaining to have a league that will sustain itself for decades, because now we have major investors who are depending on us to make sure that we have a league for the next generation of young girls. And one of my hugest passions is, and I know there's some young girl basketball players in the audience here, thank you for coming, by the way, but stay in sports. Stay in the game. There's so much data from so many organizations that say girls who play sports at least through high school, their outcomes are so much better when they get to the leadership level in companies. And I know I grew up in a very male-dominated world. And my mom used to say to me, you're going to do fine in this male-dominated world because you grew up with 5 of them. But not everybody gets to grow up with 5 brothers that throw you around, so and make you used to what it's like to get your voice heard in those rooms. So we have an enormous opportunity to give opportunities to young girls. We're going from 144 roster spots to 216 by the end of this decade. That gives so many more women the chance to play. Many women get to college on these scholarships because now, thank God, there are a lot of scholarships for women basketball players. And then they build their brands and they come into the league 4 years. One thing people don't realize, men are one and done, right? One of the reasons we're not, it's collectively bargained, by the way, that you have to be 22 by the end of the calendar year in which you get drafted to come into the WNBA. So they're all college graduates. They're all smart. They're college graduates. And the thing I love about that is the average tenure of any professional athlete, by the way, is about 4.5 years, including in our league. So what do you do for the next 30 years? And ours are college graduates, so we're also helping them find opportunities post-employment with us. And that's something they don't see today because they're just training hard to play as long as they can and their bodies will hold up. But that's another angle of this that I think is inspiring. Last point I'll make. Till recently, we launched an initiative called Line 'em Up. Till recently, there wasn't one outdoor court in America that had the WNBA three-point line on it because it's slightly different than the men's line.
Right.
And so we've started, and we're going to do it at some Chicago parks as part of All-Star Weekend. But we started it in New York last year. We did it in Indy because that's where our All-Star game. It's a Line 'em Up initiative to draw the WNBA three-point line in orange. So if you're at a park and you see an orange three-point line, that's the WNBA three-point line. It was kind of a fun thing.
So when you think ahead, what would be your greatest hope for the league?
Yeah, globalization. I mean,
globalization?
when I joined the league, the NBA I really admire. They've been at globalization for 30 years, and they've done an amazing job. Now the NFL is doing it.
Yes.
Now others are doing it. we had 8% of our players were born outside the United States. This year, 25% or more will be born outside the United States. This game is global, and it's getting global. We just weren't particularly global. So we're going across the border to Toronto and launching a team in Toronto this year, the Toronto Tempo. So and this is going to be Canada's team. I can already see the vibe. It's going to be Canada's team because we'll only have one up there for the near future. And then we've got global fans. We showed our games in India one year, just kind of for free. Let's show our games. 24 million unique viewers watched our games in India that year, and we only showed a few games. So there's huge. And in China last year, it was I think it was 3 or 4 million watched our All-Star game. It was more than watched it in the United States. So we have enormous, we just haven't globalized. So that is the next big horizon for us. And how do you then drive a revenue model off of globalizing the game?
Right.
Because we can go play games globally, and a lot of our players, especially those that are born outside the United States, play in the FIBA Euro leagues and things like that. And in Australia is very strong women's basketball. Their league has actually been around 40 years. The Aussies. The U.S., though, dominates, there's no doubt, in women's basketball. You know, in LA 28, the women are going for which gold medal? Do you remember? Consecutive.
Oh,
It'll be an all-time record. Consecutive gold medals. 9.
9. But the other countries are catching up.
But the France, the U.S. only beat France by 2.
Do you remember?
Well, and the men too. The other countries are catching up, definitely on the men's side.
Yes.
And on the women's side, they are too. So that's great for the game, that there's a globalization going on naturally. And it's a very popular, I just met with the Spanish Federation. Basketball is the most popular sport in Spain, not soccer or football. I didn't know that.
So I have just a couple more questions for you. So can you give player safety and social media? You have really, really enthusiastic fans, but can you give the audience a little bit of insight, though, into what the players go through on social media and what you think the league's role is in protecting players?
This is really important, but it's really hard. There's so much non-accountability on social media. Anyone can type anything they want without any accountability, and it's really vicious, vitriol, and it's unacceptable against anyone, let alone our players, 80% women of color. We've launched a whole platform this year to try to protect it, to give our players a social protect. If they want to block out comments, they can. Because most of the time it's not, they have thick skin, because you have to be in these kind of public roles. They have thick skin, but they don't want other people seeing the comments people are making.
Where is it coming from?
It's coming from professional haters. I mean, I literally had a guy set up a fake Twitter account on me, and my daughter actually figured out who he was because he didn't have a lot of followers, and she went to the following and the followers. Thank God for digital natives like our kids. And there was only one dupe, and it was this guy. And when you went to his Twitter account, his actual title of himself was professional hater.
I think our
Literally,
audience
that's what
would
it
be
said.
surprised, though, what the players go through, and for why.
Unfortunately, our players, like even pre-social media, went through a lot of vitriol. But now it's so easy to do without any accountability, and it's so unacceptable. And
do
so
you think there are solutions that are mitigate?
Obviously, we're doing a lot more on the kind of cyber side. Again, but players also have built their brands on social media, and a lot of their corporate partners want them to endorse their products on social media.
Yes.
So it has a lot of good in it too, but it's this bad vitriol without accountability. So this is a really hard thing to try to solve. We attacked it 4 different ways: physical security, cyber security, mental health. But again, it's only to the extent the players want to use those resources, and they don't want to shut themselves out of social media, certainly not in today's day and age. So, we continue to monitor it and ask the players, task force, and ask the players what they want from us on that. Because many of them have built their brands using those mediums,
Yep.
and you don't want to cut it off.
Yep. Well, you've had a brilliant career at Deloitte. You've had 7 years of incredible success now at the WNBA.
Not 7 years yet, but we're getting there.
7 years coming up.
These are like dog years, by the way.
It's been a lot of years, yes.
Yeah, well, just think about it. It's pandemic, it's George Floyd, social justice, everything the players stood for, the amazing work they did in our bubble to even come to our bubble, let alone be able to play in our bubble through all the racial tension. And then obviously, you know, we have a team in Minnesota, and they're very impacted by what just happened and what continues to happen in this country. And Brittany Griner getting wrongfully detained in Russia. That was another one. Like every week we were talking to the special presidential envoy of hostage affairs, part of the State Department. Like, wait, my kids would be like, Mom, why are you talking to the State Department? But obviously that was really important because Brittany was wrongfully detained, and thank God she came home safely. So there's so much.
Yes.
But then we hit this great momentum. So we're really proud of the players, proud of what they're doing on the court, off the court, and can't wait for season 30.
Well, we all look forward to it, and we're so grateful to have you here with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.